Hey guys, and welcome to another Unshakable Christian. In today's episode, we're going to be discussing the attribute of God and the seven spirits of God that we've been discussing. And specifically, we're going to be talking about knowledge today. Now, if you don't already know what we've been covering, we've been going over Isaiah 11, verses 1 on down, talking about the seven attributes or characters of God and how this pertains to God's love. Now, when we've gone into this, we've discussed that you have to understand God's love in order to be able to mimic God's love. But if we don't understand his character, it's a superficial love. It's like saying, I love pizza or I love a candy bar, where, yeah, you like it and yeah, it has some fulfillment, but you don't know how it's made. I mean, and really, come on. If you lost a candy bar, you wouldn't be upset. But unfortunately, a lot of people have this mindset about God that, hey, if I lose God, I'll be okay. I'll just get another one. So, moving on. Knowledge. When we think about knowledge, usually we think about either book sense and common sense knowledge. And both of these are correct. Now, when we go and look in the Bible, it says the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge and understanding and wisdom. It also says the whole book of Proverbs is listen to my instruction, gain knowledge, gain wisdom. And if we look at this, we understand that knowledge and understanding go together and are tied with wisdom, and is tied with counsel. So you see how all these play upon themselves. So let's address the first one. Knowledge as far as book sense. Granted, God does not, as far as I know, have a big old book up in heaven that he's researching and he's looking in and making notes and studying and everything. Because he made everything. He knows everything. He's the one that created knowledge. So God, having the knowledge of how things work and how things happen and why things happen and cause and effect, and you make a genre of something that somebody can study, he knows it. Philosophy, God understands it. Science, got it. Math, understands it. To such an effect that it has been said that if the earth, when he created the earth, he had such knowledge that if he were to tilt the axis, I believe it's 2 degrees in one way or the other, that everything would cease to exist because life could not be sustained at that angle. Additionally, God has given us various pieces of knowledge and various pieces of information throughout the Bible that we later come to understand. We come to the knowledge of it. An example of this would be in the Old Testament, where God tells the Israelites if they're sick to bathe in running water. Now, it wasn't until the mid-1900s that modern medicine said, hey, maybe if I am dipping my hands in a water bowl and lifting them back up and operating on somebody and then dipping them back in and going and seeing a sick person and dipping them back in, maybe that's not the best practice. Maybe I need to wash these germs off. So God has shown us his knowledge and his wisdom way before sometimes we actually find it in the Bible or we comprehend it. So there's the book sense of it. Now the common sense knowledge is that God, this goes with the counsel, and this goes with the understanding. The common sense knowledge that God has is that he won't put on more than we can handle. The Bible clearly states that when we go through trials and tribulations, that God is going to give us an exit strategy. Common sense also is dictated in the Bible where it says, hey, can 2 or more people walk together if they're not agreed? No, if you don't agree with somebody, you're not going to be around them. The Bible also goes into detail where it's talking about the wisdom and the knowledge, and can you set a trap without it being seen? That's true. Now, let's go on to another aspect of knowledge, and this is the ability to restrain and the ability to think before you speak. Now, we can see this epitomized in Jesus, because Jesus is God incarnate. So while God was on the earth, or Jesus was on the earth, we know that the Pharisees and the scribes tried to get him tied up, tried to make him trip over his words, tried to make him, in all effects, sin so that they would have reason to stone him to death. But if we look at how different situations were addressed and how different things were handled, then we will understand better how we as a Christian can apply this and how we can show knowledge and by that show the love of God. So the first example I want to get is when the Pharisees come to Jesus and they bring him the money and they say, "Who, is it right to pay taxes?" Now, I wish he would have said no, because hey, then we'd all be set. But he had enough knowledge that he understood what was going on, and so he did the whole "whose face is on this coin?" And they said, "Well, Caesar's." And he said, "Well, pay to Caesar what belongs to him. Pay to God what belongs to God." See, most of us, given that situation, we would have thought about our desires, and we would have thought about what the people around us wanted. And we would have said, no, we don't have to pay taxes. Or we might have had enough knowledge, like Jesus had, to say, hey, if I say no, we don't pay taxes, they're going to see this as a sign of rebellion against the Roman Empire, and everything's going to break loose. And then you're going to say, yes, you need to pay taxes, and then the people would turn against you. So Jesus, with his knowledge, gave, I don't want to say a political answer, but in all effect it was. It was a give to God what belongs to him, give to the people, the government what belongs to the government. So that's one example. The other example of God's knowledge is the way that he formatted the Bible. He gave it to us in a progressive revelation, which means that we get knowledge built upon each other like little bricks throughout. Genesis, we have very little information about God's overall plan. And then Revelation, we have the conclusion of God's plan. And it builds up just like a story going up and builds up. And then we have the climactic end in Revelation. Now, most of us overlook this progressive revelation and the knowledge of God because we have the Bible in its entirety. But if we consider how these texts were originally constructed, we can very well see that God, with his common sense knowledge, gave us the Bible when we could handle such information. Think about it. If God told Adam from the very beginning, hey, here's the tree of life, you're going to sin, you're going to fall short, I'm going to send some guy to earth, Jesus, he's going to be killed, he's going to be slaughtered, but it's really not going to have much effect on the world except for the select few that decide to follow Jesus. Other than that, the world's going to fall back into sin after, of course, I flood it and wipe the people out, and then at the very end, I'm going to come back and I'm going to reunite everybody with him. It would have blown his mind. So God had the common sense and the knowledge to set things up as we needed to have them. So what does this mean for God and God's love? Well, first of all, let's talk about book sense knowledge and God's love. I personally am tired of people who state knowledge and state theology and state doctrines and don't have any fact behind it. There's a place for opinions, yes, but when you base your opinions and spout them as fact and as knowledge, and they have no biblical grounding, then these things shouldn't be done. State that it's an opinion. The second thing is common sense knowledge. Now, common sense knowledge, as I said, is the ability to withhold your tongue and think before you speak, and to be able to apply knowledge in situations that is not only beneficial to you, but beneficial to everybody. So, using Jesus' example and how He didn't turn away the sick, and he didn't turn away the lepers, or he dined with the undesirables. Let's use our knowledge on these things, and let's open our hearts and open our minds to people. Does this mean that you should accommodate everybody in the world? No, it doesn't. But at the same time, we need to keep the gossip and the slander and such things that have no place among Christians out of the church. A great deal of our knowledge that we obtain is nothing more than gossip and a loose tongue. James tells us very clearly that the tongue, although it's small, has the power to steer the ship. And what's the ship? What's the vessel? You are. So if your tongue is spouting off false knowledge about other people or false doctrines about the Bible, you're steering yourself on a course that is not true. If you're steering yourself on a course that is not true, then you're not going on the path that God has intended. Now, there are some people that will watch this video and think I'm targeting them, yet I'm not. I'm just stating what's been laid upon my heart as far as relating to God's knowledge and relating to God's love. You see, we can't have a biased knowledge. We can't have a biased opinion of what is truth and what is knowledge and what is understanding and what is wisdom and what is counsel and what's the fear of the Lord and what's righteousness, etc. We either take the Bible for what it says or we discard it entirely. So, I know this was brief. I'm trying to cut down my messages a little bit as far as duration. That way they're easily seen, easily understood, and questions and comments can be asked. So, until next time, this is Unshakable Christian. Like always, please comment below, read on Tumblr, and please follow us. Show us that you're listening. Show us that you care. Until next time, thanks.